How are we feeling about the potential Premier League sack race, chap? Because I think the list of managers is growing, right? I think Hasenhüttl might. He feels like a manager who's always like hovering around that managers to leave list. But I think like the performance against United might. Whenever he's got his back up against the wall, the team always seem to pull a bit of a performance out. And I know they lost against United, but I think it was an all right performance from him. Gerrard, Lampard, Rodgers, the main contenders. Yeah, they're the ones. Well, they're the three favourites, right? On odds checker. Brendan Rodgers had really like he was out on his own. It's like evens on Rodgers for most. Yeah, first manager to lose his job, basically evens. Stevie G, Lampard. I think that the most telling thing for Rodgers is that he just doesn't seem to be. He's just not getting backed at all, and there doesn't seem to be kind of any overwhelming desire to move players on that don't want to be there. Like obviously Fofana's going, they need to reinvest that money. But what's happening with Tielemans? Like his contract's up at the end of the year. Should they not have like got him out of the door before the season even started? Like, okay, you're not going to renew your contract. We need you to go and find a new club because we're not going to register you. Scott Parker wouldn't shock me. We'll get onto Scott Parker soon. But yeah, battered by Arsenal, lost against Southampton, took Stockport County to penalties. A League Two side, let's not forget. League Two Stockport County. Lose against Chelsea. He's just not doing very well, is he? And I know, like, he's won an FA Cup. He's got European football in the past. Even last year, like, 14 wins, 10 draws. A lot of those wins were right at the end of the season as well. He had a really average season right the way through. It was obviously they needed some work in the transfer window, and the board just haven't backed him up. Whether it's because they don't have the available money now, but surely then it's like, well, you need to be moving players on like Tielemans if he doesn't want to be there. You need to be, getting a Fofana deal done early doors rather than leaving it all to the last minute. It's just it's a really weird situation there. I don't know whether it's because the board don't trust Rodgers. The player, he's kind of lost the dressing room or the players a little bit. He's lost a little bit of momentum. There's no new players, no refreshing. He looks like he doesn't want to be there. I think is the big thing for me. When you see him in interviews, he just looks like a beaten man. Frank Lampard as well. Like, their results haven't been great. A draw with Brentford, and it looked like they were going to get 3 points up until the last few minutes, right? So maybe that's like a bit of a stay of execution. There's some players coming in. He's obviously got players missing through injury. Maybe they trust him. Maybe they believe that he can get the results that they need. 2 draws, 2 losses in the first 4 games isn't ideal. But yeah, maybe Frank has a little bit of a stay of execution. Like, what are their fixtures, actually? Who have they got coming up? Leeds away. Who have actually surprised me with how well I've been doing. And then Everton, Liverpool. Then Everton, Arsenal. Oh, Jesus Christ. He needs to get something out of this game. As an Everton fan, I think we'd be very stupid to sack Lampard. There just doesn't seem, for me, like watching it as a neutral, there doesn't seem to be a match winner there for me. It's like I've watched quite a lot of Everton games, to be honest. It's not like, it doesn't look like the players are down tools. I don't think he's lost the players or anything. Like, it looks like the players are really trying for him. But I wonder whether situationally, tactic-wise, system-wise, even just personnel-wise, whether he's got the players there to do anything. And I guess the argument with that is, well, if the players aren't there to do it, then is another manager going to get something better out of them? It's just going to be really brutal if it doesn't get anything out of the Leeds game, and then you've got to assume that the Liverpool derby and the Arsenal game are 0 points, right? I feel like expectations are so low at Everton. One sacking off the bottom 3 at the same time the World Cup starts. Yeah, it's a good point, actually. The World Cup break, because even if they do go right, yeah, it's not working. There's like 15 games played, 16 games played after that. So there's still time to to make that decision. And then, like, there's the big break of getting the new manager in, letting him get his feet under the table, meeting the players, getting some training, having a couple of friendlies as well, right? So there is that. So maybe you are right, Breezy. I think he's probably going to have a longer stay of execution than Rodgers or Gerrard, I'm going to talk about in a sec. Feels like their recruits have not been fit for purpose for a few years. Everton, they went through a weird phase where they were just signing everyone, right? They just signed all the number 10s. It was like they were just getting hold of the players that were available to them. And it's really blown up in their face. Poor recruitment, overspending on a lot of players. And they've just ended up with like a bit of a bloated squad that's lacking a bit of quality. Like, and a lot of players who are entering their 30s now, or like early to mid 30s. But yeah, then the other favourite is it's going to be Stevie G, right? It's got to be 1-1, lost 3, looked really poor. For me, the thing with Steven Gerrard is he replaced Dean Smith, who'd done a really good job of getting of kind of solidifying Villa in the Championship, bringing him up, getting him solid in the Premier League. And my understanding was that they didn't see Dean Smith as being the guy who can take the team to the next level and kind of push him on and get him into the top 8, get him into Europe. They went for Steven Gerrard, who has, to my eyes, he's getting worse performances out of them whilst having spent a lot of money. I mean, their results. Lost 2-0 against Bournemouth. I think the more games, and I get it was like opening day, home day of the Premier League season, at home, all that kind of stuff. I think the performances from Bournemouth after this are very telling on the quality of Aston Villa. Beat Everton, but we've just talked about Everton, right? The Palace game was pretty easy. Bolton took him close, right? The first, was it 1-1 at half time? I thought Bolton had a decent game. Ended up winning that. And then beaten by West Ham, another team that's had a really tough start to the season, but just looked completely disjointed. When you've got your main goal scorer not in the... Like, Danny Ings like just seems to spend half of his time out on the wings or in a number 10. It's like... There doesn't seem to be a tactical plan there. They did spend on the Smith as well. Oh, yeah, I'm not saying they didn't spend on the Smith. But that's the reason they moved him out, I think, is because they had spent money and they expected more from it. And I think Steven Gerrard has... He's getting... At best, he's getting what Dean Smith was getting out of the club. So yeah, like, I think Gerrard, for me, he's the one that looks like... Whilst I think that Rodgers might be the first one to go, I don't think Steven Gerrard will be that far behind him, unless he can seriously turn this around. Arsenal up next, away. That's on Wednesday. That's not looking good for him, is it? And then Man City at home. Could this be the game where... Is this El Sacico? Is Leicester v Villa next Saturday? Is that El Sacico? We're going to have a little bit of a talk about Liverpool's 9-0. Now, you can't really argue that it was an incredible performance. Like, just ruthless from Liverpool. They scored 1 and then didn't stop. Could have been 10. Probably should have been 10. I was actually amazed when I looked at the match stats afterwards. They scored half of the shots that they'd had in the entire game. I say only had 20 shots in a game where they scored 9. Obviously a very good performance, but man, this Bournemouth team looked like they're regressing. They started out with a win opening day, but it looks like every game they're playing, they're getting worse. And I think that lands right at the feet of Scott Parker. I get that he's gutted, right? But it's after every loss now. He's coming out and basically saying, yeah, my players aren't good enough. It's like, we're not at this level. Like, this is who we are. Like, I can see more losses like this. Like, if you're a player in that dressing room, that is going to be brutal to hear. That your manager doesn't think you're good enough, basically. It's wild. Like, there's one thing, yeah, he's lost. Yeah, he's just been battered 9-0 about. But to come out and basically, after the last 3 losses, go, yeah, we're not good enough. Like, there's been people saying, oh, well, he's trying to get the board to invest some money and, you know, like, so they can have a shot of it. There's a way to do it without throwing your players under the bus. Like, you could come out after a game like Liverpool and go, like, Liverpool showed their quality today. They're an elite football team. They've shown they're one of the best football teams in Europe over the last few years. Like, it's really tough to hang with these kind of teams. You know, with a bit more investment, like we can make a good fist to staying up. Like, the players that we've got are great, but like a little bit more quality is always going to help us achieve our goals. You say that, and it's not going, yeah, this is our level. We're not good enough. I can see us getting beaten 9-0 again. Like, it's just very, I don't know. It's too much for me. I don't necessarily disagree with him, but I think it's too much to have your manager basically saying we're shit. It's got Moyes at Sunderland vibes. Yeah, definitely. Is this Parker trying to press the owners to get sacked? He wasn't backed as he hoped. Maybe. I don't think any manager would be trying to get himself sacked. But I said this about Bournemouth when they were coming up. Like, I can see them struggling because they got promoted through having a really good attack. They've not invested that much. Certainly not invested like Fulham have. Definitely not like Forest have. But no one's invested like Forest have. But I just wonder whether he's got the actual management chops to kind of hang at this level with those quality players. Like, there's worse teams that have come up and stayed up in terms of players that they've got. They get more money from being sacked, though. I don't think Scott Parker is going to be money motivated at this point of his career. He had a long professional football career. He's a manager now. He's not going to be short a few quid. It's just depressing from Parker. It looks like a guy who's just like, I don't know. He almost feels like he's given up after 4 games, which is concerning. And like I say, if you're a player in that dressing room and you're watching your manager go, yeah, we're shite. We're going down. We're going to get beaten 9-0 again. Like, how do you get those players up for the next game? Like, it just feels like he's throwing these players under the bus. Needlessly. Surely having them motivated and kind of trying to back up your words that you're giving at the press is better than digging them out, calling them shit every time you're in front of a camera. It's not good. It's not good. What's everyone's, like, overriding thought of the Antony deal? Good player, stupid fee. I'd agree, yeah. 100 million, that's a bad precedent on price going forward, but it means back in ETH and his plans it's the right player. You see, like, that's my overriding feeling. Transfer fees are stupid this year anyway. On pretty much all of them. It's like, it's a seller's market, right? Especially when you don't want to move a player on. It's a seller's market, so they can just demand what they want. So you've seen it with Anthony Gordon, right? 60 million quid for a kid that's had, what, like 1 season as a starter? Really? Maybe more if he ends up going. It's looking likely though, right? So, yeah, it's a silly fee, but the manager, Erik ten Hag, has obviously said, get me Antony. The board have come back, or Murtaugh or whoever have come back and gone, this is going to cost us 100 million quid, or 100 million euros, or whatever it is. Are you sure on this? And if he's gone, yeah, this kid's worth it. Like, I've worked with him for 2 years. He's a game changer. He's gonna be great. He's worth it. Like, he's only 22, so you've got like the talks of like a 5-year plus 1 deal, right? So you've got him for like the peak of his career, and his ability / skill set seems to be, you know, unquestionably very high. But it's a daft fee. But if one guy knows if he's worth it, you'd think it's the manager that he's played under for the last 2 years, right? So I'm willing to kind of curb my gasps. The only issue with it for me is it's not necessarily the money that's spent, because it's not my money, is it, right, at the end of the day? If that's how much he costs and the manager wants him, then that's how much he costs. My only concern is, like, there's still threadbare areas of this squad that could do with strengthening. Now, obviously, there's talk of Dubravka coming in. There's like a second choice keeper / someone to push David De Gea. And I really rate Dubravka. I think he's a very good keeper. I think he's like a little unfortunate to lose his position to Nick Pope, to be honest. I don't think he's necessarily done anything wrong. He's been a little bit injury prone, right? But I don't see any other real transfers coming in, which is a little bit of a shame. But maybe it's just a sign of long-term planning. It's like, okay, well, we'll bring these 4 or 5 players in now. Maybe we'll get 1 or 2 in January, and then we'll rebuild the other bits that need rebuilding in the summer. It's like an ongoing thing. Maybe it's actually a sign of, like, the board backing him. Who knows? But yeah, Antony. Basically a winger. Played most of his games on the right wing. A lot of the times I've watched him play, he's been out there as well. But he's a creator as well as a scorer. Creates chances for himself as well as others. And he's just a live wire, right? He takes people on. I envisage him being a similar kind of way that a similar kind of player to what I assumed we were getting with Jadon Sancho, and we're actually starting to see a little bit this year. He's a player that likes to take the ball down, run at people, like kind of commit defenders. And those kind of players are really invaluable because it makes the other team kind of have to double upon them, almost like you saw it with ASM against Man City, right? Because he's such a good ball carrier, it makes teams go, all right, well, we've got to make sure that he doesn't beat us because he's really dangerous. Whereas, like, players who'll beat you with speed or movement, like, that's just more of like an in the moment kind of thing with the player. Like, you can't double up a player because they're faster than you. Can't double up on a player because they're faster than you, because he'll just beat both of you in a foot race. So it's more about kind of general team shape. But if you've got a player who, even 50% of the time, is going to get past your fullback or get past his marker through dribbling, then you have to have like a contingency plan, and that changes the way that the opposition team has to line up and how they have to defend against you. So I think it's going to be a really interesting signing. We're going to have players like him and Sancho when we need players who can take the ball and run at people and create things in tight areas. Then we've got players like Rashford and even Alanga who have got that kind of raw pace to get in behind when you're playing on the break. I like it. I like it in terms of a deal. I would say it's just a lot of money, right? And the raw data backs it up, right? His ball carrying stuff, like even his passing, like his link up play, his creative play is really good. But his ball carrying stuff's the stuff that stands out really. Yeah, total carrying distance, progressive carries, like he's quite high in his miscontrols though, which is a little bit of a worry. But obviously, receives the ball high up the pitch, gets a lot of touches on it, takes people on, crosses the ball into the box a lot as well. So I wonder whether not having like a big physical striker, like they did with Sebastian Haller at Ajax last year, might be an issue for us. I like these though, interceptions and ball recoveries. And he's coming into a system, or like what will hopefully end up being the system that he's played in under Ten Hag. So he knows it perfectly. Kind of like bringing in Martinez. I like the fact it's being reported as 100 million as well. When it's like, was it 95 million euros plus another 5 million potentially. So it's like 80 million pounds. But it's obviously being reported of whatever sounds like the highest number. Gordon being talked about as a 70 mil player after 6 average months. And 6 good months, though. Yeah. And English tax as well, right? You always pay extra for the English tax. Gordon could be good, but was disliking his unpicked personality last season. He's diving about. Yeah. But like, my confusion with the whole Antony Gordon to Chelsea thing, it's not so much about the player and whether he's worth it. I think he's a very good player. Like, he probably is going to have a career at a top club, whether that be Everton or Chelsea or whatever. It just feels like Chelsea are moving players out, or potentially moving players out to bring players in, like to bring Antony Gordon in, who are very similar players. So that it sounds like they're trying to move Pulisic out, whether it be in a loan or permanent. They've just let Callum Hudson-Odoi go to Leverkusen, right? They're both kind of quick, tricky 10s/wingers who can beat a man and kind of progress the ball through ball carry. Like I was just saying, like ball carrying attackers. They're moving 2 of these players out who are, I'd say, like him and Callum Hudson-Odoi are about the same kind of, level of polish. Like, they're both very raw players. I think Pulisic's a really good player. It just seems like a really weird thing to do, to move out 2 players that do the same thing, or be attempting to move out 2 players that do the same thing, to pay over the odds for a lad who does the same thing as those 2. I saw a Destin AWB swap deal. Why would Barca want Wan-Bissaka? Unless they believe that they can coach him a bit more. I don't know. I think Wan-Bissaka's in the same boat as quite a few United players, in that, like, it's a move that hasn't worked out for him. And I think if he goes somewhere else, he can kind of like almost kickstart his career again, get it back on track and go again. I kind of feel like that with Shaw as well, to be honest. We'll see about the Dest thing, though. Like, it's all rumours, isn't it? There's a lot of sign tapping going on in the next few days. The Dubravka deal is surely a stopgap until we get Hendo back. I don't think Henderson comes back as a first choice keeper. not after his wrestling promo after he left, basically saying, I didn't want the managers to see me because I didn't want to stay there. It's like, okay, well, I just hope he has a good season so we can get a good fee from him in the summer. He might stick 10 million on his asking price. Do you still think we need a striker though to get rid of Ronaldo? It's looking like Ronaldo's going to leave, right? I think the icing on the cake, the final nail in the coffin was him not starting when our first choice striker's injured. Him not getting the game there. If plans get AWB and a Gallagher. Yeah, there's talks of like, what, a 30 million bid for Gallagher? If they take AWB back, like, because the thing is, right, they could go, all right, well, we'll give you 20 million. They've still made a 30 million profit over 3 years.